Thanks for tuning in. I'm Chris Thompson, and this is the Brain Software Podcast, episode 128, coming to you from Toronto, Canada. Today, Mike Mandel and I uncover awesome ways you can change your life right now.
Mr. Thompson, I have to tell you the most remarkable adventure of Johnny Leifhimniot's woe and the Chinese salad dressing, or perhaps the fascinating story of Johnny Brookman Ding Tilasia and the rare miniature indoor golden cheetah. Mr. Thompson, or would you rather hear the adventure of Henry Squatter and the bottle of paint thinner? I say, are you there? Mr. Thompson, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Clem Fandango. Now let's put ashore somewhere with a quiet harbor, the sort of place where all is well and all is tranquil. That's right. Perhaps Dallas, Fort Worth. And we weigh anchor and drop in. I mean really drop in on Jack Ruby and see how his nightclub is doing. But seriously, folks, whatever happened to that old tranquility we used to know? The lawn tree is in bloom for us, and these are days of victory! So let's welcome to the garden center the hypnotic arborist himself, a man who invests in himself, the master and commander of all things hypnosis, Mike Mandel.
Yes, Chris, what a great day this is. I'm so excited about all the stuff that's going on. Let's get right into it.
Oh, we are going to get right into it. So before we do, quick announcements. Our June Architecture of Hypnosis class completely sold out, and we're recording this several weeks in advance of the class. So if you missed out, your best chance to see us at a live training are as follows. First of all, we're doing a one-day training. This is something we're super excited about. August 15th in Las Vegas, and it is called the Architecture of Change. So rather than Architecture of Hypnosis, which is the full Monty, the full 5-day training, this is one day about how to take everything you know and build amazing client experiences. So the full day is about how to run client sessions, everything from the intake through to saying goodbye and shaking their hands on the way out.
And this will be at HypnoThoughts Live, the world's biggest, foremost, most amazing hypnosis conference. So you can come and do a day's training with Chris and I, the whole package, and then stay for the conference and meet some really cool and amazing hypnosis
We're going
trainers.
to turn this one into a great course, a great event where you're going to learn a lot about the change work and integrating your change work with the business side of things. So Mike and I are going to work together very hard on this one and make it amazing. Anyway, you can find out about that and other events at MikeMandelHypnosis.com/events. So also on the events page, you're going to see that your next chance beyond Las Vegas to see us will be in Europe, in London specifically. Wizard School. We're doing the second ever Wizard School class, hosted by our friend Carl Smith right near Heathrow Airport, November 6th and 7th. Carl is running it from the UK, not teaching it, but running he's doing all the
We're teaching
all the
it.
back end.
He's
Mike,
doing the work.
Mike is teaching it specifically. Carl is just helping us organize the event in London. So that is November 6th and 7th in London, and that's Wizard School. And then we're sticking around, boys and girls, in London because we're going to be at the UK Hypnosis Convention. And on November 11th, a one-day mindscaping class.
Which is a certification program as well. You want to learn mindscaping, come and train with me, the guy who created it, and get certified in it. You can use mindscaping in all your products and online and use the name.
By the way, when you take mindscaping in a live class, you get the digital copy for free. It's included. And then finally, once we fly back from the UK, we are teaching the 5-day Architecture of Hypnosis in November 18th to the 22nd in Toronto, and that is the last chance to train with us in 2019. So there you have it. What's next?
Well, the theme for today, Chris, how to have a great life right now.
That is going to be a great topic. Why didn't I think of that?
It's like the instant gratification newsletter.
All right.
I want instant gratification and I want it right now.
All right. So we're going to have a great podcast talking about building a great life. This is just so fundamentally important to all of our listeners. Whether you are a hypnotist helping clients, helping them build better lives, building a better life for yourself, or if you're just interested in personal development and you want to have an awesome life, you're a parent and you wanted your kids to have an awesome life, these tools are globally useful and applicable.
Right.
But
And
before we get to
it, we have to look at the think tank words of the day.
and those think tank words, which we'll reveal in a moment, the reminder of what they are for, it's to connect to what we're talking about.
Yeah,
So
we're using the brain's patterning system. So I use the actual think tank, to generate three or four random words, and then we see what that sparks in our mind and how we're going to apply it to this podcast and maybe our lives as well.
4 random words. Is one of those words disposal? Because there's only 3 on the list.
No, I
So
say
I'm
3
just
or 4. Very funny.
Oh, okay. All right. Here are the 3 words. We have increment, compare, and refrigeration.
Okay, well, what comes up with me right away, Chris? When I see increment, I think of incremental change. It's that old line, but it's still so powerful. How do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. You can take on the biggest transformation task in your life, and if you make tiny changes consistently, you look back over a year or two, you will not believe how your life is transformed.
Oh, that is
incremental
totally
change. So that's
true.
how that applies for me.
That is an absolutely truthful statement, and I can't remember how many times we brought up the idea of baby steps, but it's so funny how the think tank word of the day just reinforces that same message all over again. It's like we're building it up in increments for people.
Right.
We're just making it so important.
So what do you get when you look at compare?
Oh, well, compare. Okay, I just finished listening to an audiobook on parenting, and it was about sibling rivalry. And of course, since I have 2 daughters that are not that far apart in age, and at this age, kids fight a lot. So one of the lessons that was taught in that book is it is not useful to compare one kid to another. Why can't you be more like your brother? And that kind of thing. This is really, really harmful. So focus on yourself rather than comparing yourself to somebody else's situation. And if anything, compare to where you used to be.
Oh, that's good,
Right?
Chris. That's solid. Yeah, the danger is when we compare our worst to other people's best. And then we get depressed or down and we become demotivated. We have to compare
Do you know what that
our best
reminds me
to
of?
what we're currently doing.
So if you're on social media, Facebook, things like that, what do people put out there about their lives on social media? Usually at the best, right?
It's all narcissism. Here's a picture of me in Spain.
Have
Here's
you
a picture
ever?
of me in France. Here's a picture of me winning the lottery. No one ever says, here's a picture of me in the intensive care ward because I got freaking cancer.
People do sometimes.
Yeah, but generally speaking.
How many times? Let me just ask you all as listeners this, and I'm going to ask you this question, Mike. How many times in your life can you remember? Not a ton, I'm sure, but it's happened. Where maybe you're at a wedding or something, or a party or something with your wife, and there's something going on. And you're just both of you are kind of annoyed at each other for some reason, but there's a picture opportunity. You have to smile, put on your happy face, right? And then you go back to arguing about whatever it is, because we all argue once in a while with other people who are close to us, right? And we're not going to have an argument about this right now, though,
No, definitely not.
But we show the world the best part of our lives, and so if we are on Facebook and we are looking at someone else's awesome part of their life, and we're thinking to what we know about, we know the truth about our entire lives,
and
we
feel like
only
we don't
see,
measure up when we keep comparing.
We are comparing other people's best to our everything, not our worst
maybe
necessarily.
Maybe not even their best, but their persona, the mask they're putting out there. Funny thing is, a
It's
number
not
of years
useful.
ago, 2 different rock stars I worked with, both of them Canadian, but big in Canada. I won't say their names, but they were both very, very skilled. One was a guitarist, one was a bass player. And someone asked for a picture. We're at the same event. I was doing a hypnosis show. They were performing, and someone wanted a picture of the 2 of them, and they couldn't stand each other. And the one turned to the other, and he said, "Let's pretend we like each other just for the photograph." And he said, "Okay." And from the picture, you'd think they were best friends.
That's hilarious.
Which is how I feel every time. Our scary thing I was going to say, it happens with you.
There we
just
go.
kidding. So what about our third word?
Okay, refrigeration.
Whoa. We both just froze on that one. Get it?
Yeah, I do get it.
Yeah.
R132, Mike? Which refrigeration coolant are we talking about?
Well, I'm thinking the old Freon, Chris.
All right, R11, the bad stuff.
The thing is here, refrigeration, the implication is you're stopping something from rotting and becoming unusable. You're preserving something.
Or you're cooling off something that's overheated.
Okay, so there's some areas of our life that maybe need to be preserved. But sometimes when a fridge gets overloaded and starts to look like a science project when you open the door, it's time to
clean it out.
So let's think of that. Let's think in terms of freezing some things in place, cooling off some things, keeping some things preserved, and throwing out the other things.
So let's keep all of that in mind as we move on with today's topic, which is having an awesome life right now.
Now, this really ties into logical levels. That's how we put this together. Robert Dilts put together logical levels, and it's a great way of understanding where we're stuck or where we need to change. The higher up the hierarchy we go, the harder it is to change. It requires more energy, but the more profound the result will be once implemented.
Yes.
So we haven't looked at this for a couple of years, and I think it's time to revisit it with a very specific plan here.
Yeah, it has been probably close to 2 years since we did a full podcast on logical levels. If you're interested in this topic and you want to supplement your knowledge with that episode, it was episode 74 of the Brain Software Podcast.
Oh, that's good to know.
So look it up in the archives, and that was all about logical levels. So let's start. What are we starting with?
Well, the main thing is the first level, which is on the bottom, which is your environment. And that's where you live, where you move, where you have your being, where you work. Just everything around you that isn't you is your environment. That isn't a part of you. And you can tell when people complain as though life is happening to them, they feel everything is just affecting them, that they are stuck at environment level. They feel like they are powerless.
That is absolutely true. In fact, and I'm not going to reveal any names, but just yesterday, there was a gentleman who had messaged us through Facebook Messenger and wanted to know if you could be hypnotized without your awareness. So, of course, you can. Covert hypnosis happens. Or you can just have a conversation with somebody, and hypnosis happens all the time. If you ever watch a movie, hypnosis happens when you're driving, and you're not planning on it. It's not like you're consciously saying, I'm going to hypnotize myself right now, but it happens, right? But this gentleman was just concerned because he really believed that his in-laws were out to get him and were hypnotizing him to have insomnia and things like this. And I'm just going, buddy is at freaking effect. He is not at cause. He is stuck in a belief model of the world where the world is happening to him, and these people are doing these things, and they are making him have these emotions, and those emotions are driving his behavior.
Right. And in reality, the first thing you must undertake as we look at this is recognize that no matter where you are in your environment, there are still things you can do that will change it.
And emotion is a good one. Nobody can make you feel anything. You are reacting however you've programmed yourself.
Right. And remember, too, as we teach our students, you do not react and respond to the real world. You respond to the internal representation of it that you're making in your brain based on your perceptual filters, your beliefs, and so on, and your life experience.
That's so true. And if you think about text messaging as an example here, if somebody texts you something and maybe they use all caps for emphasis, but you think they're yelling,
shouting at you,
or you think they're mad or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Text messaging, people are interpreting all the time what the meaning is behind that message, and then they're having an emotional reaction to it.
Good point. And so emotional reactions, of course, make you more vulnerable to suggestion as well, so that the loop goes on and on and on. So recognize life isn't just happening to you. No matter what your situation is, no matter how little money you have, success leaves clues. And there are things you can do to begin to rotate the wheel in the other direction and begin to build momentum. And that's kind of the stuff we're going to talk about here. There will be things you cannot change, though. It's important to recognize that. I am not a believer in the early NLP stuff that Tony Robbins voiced in his early books, that anybody can do anything any other person can do. I just don't accept that. Oh, you have the same brain, you have the same neurology. Yeah, but not everybody can be the world chess champion.
Yeah, I was thinking yesterday I spent the day with my younger daughter at a track and field competition. I just thought, there's clear differences in physiology, right? Like a really tall kid who's a fast sprinter is going to also do better in the long jump than, my kid who's not super tall.
Right. I just read that thing the other day about two guys in the U.S., somewhere in New England. I think it was a high school track meet, and they identify as female now.
Oh,
and
wonderful.
It was a foregone conclusion that they would win first and second place, and they did. And then all the girls had to fight for third place because males do have the physical advantage of being stronger, more powerful, faster.
Please understand, we're not judging here.
No, I'm just making
we're just making a physiological comment. Yeah,
physiological. So there are things you cannot change, no matter what. And complaining will not fix things. And many, many people listening right now if you recognize that if you stop complaining, that's a tremendous first step to having a better life.
Oh, I love that because, as you know, I've talked to you about it. There's a particular business mastermind that I want to join. And I was reading through the, not terms and conditions of joining, but sort of the belief that the philosophy of their way of doing things. And one of the things they wrote down is never complain.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
Because we're not complainers. Complaining doesn't ever do anything. Action gets things done, not complaining.
That's right.
You complain, you're complaining about inaction.
And it just becomes, especially when it's a stuck loop and the person goes round and round and round, it gets so you can complain for them because you know it so well.
Yeah, this is probably a good time to reinforce that idea of the present state versus the target state really quickly, right? So we all have this present state that we're in, and we have the target state that we are moving towards. And we never get there because it's like a treadmill of life. You're always on a moving platform. You're always looking towards that next thing. You don't arrive at it.
Okay, I don't like treadmill as the metaphor.
Yeah,
it
maybe
sounds
it's
like
a bad
drudgery.
metaphor.
What about a river?
How about a walk, a nice walk in the park?
I like that.
Elegant walk. You are always continuing down that path, never arriving. Like, we don't want to think about the end game because that's basically death, right? Or extreme boredom. I don't know.
Which can feel like death, I'm sure.
That's not what we're after. So we're in a present state and we're moving towards a target state that's always changing itself. And if we are in a problematic present state, that's when we get into a complaining stage,
and it's a downward spiral.
All we're doing is like tent pegging ourselves. Imagine tent pegging yourself into your present state. You're just driving tent pegs through your freaking foot and locking yourself down to that crappy point in your life instead of allowing yourself to walk down that garden path.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. And remember we've talked in previous podcasts how the descent that happens is incremental. There's one of our words, but it's continuous. Yeah. People who succeed do it because of making good decisions, which opens doors to meeting new people who give them new access to different resources. They make more good decisions. Likewise, if you're living underneath, a major highway with a squeegee and living in a cardboard box, there's a reason you got there.
Small
it's a series of small bad decisions leading to more and more and fewer opportunities.
You're so right. It's like, what did you describe it to me one day as like this hourglass thinking?
Yes.
Think of a vertical hourglass. And so it becomes a letter V on the top and an upside down V on the bottom. And the vertex, that intersection point, is, let's say, neutral life.
Right.
And if you want to make your life awesome, you've got to incrementally climb up vertically as it opens up into a V.
Which gets easier and easier as the possibilities are there.
And if you want your life to suck, do the opposite. And incrementally make bad decisions.
That's good, Chris. It's interesting that you pointed that out because this fits in a lot of different ways. I have found, I was telling Michael C. Anthony about this, until I started eating right, and I don't want to turn this into a podcast about nutrition and stuff, but until I started eating right and exercising correctly, I found it very, very difficult to lose weight. Then I lost it quite quickly and quite well, putting on muscle and losing fat, down almost 28 pounds worth, feeling great now. But I have found once you do the hard lifting in the beginning, the maintenance is freaking easy. Mm-hmm. It's so easy for me to stay like 162 now, whereas before it was hard to get there. But once you're there, I think that's the same with many, many areas of life.
I totally agree with that. There was something I wanted to go on from there, and I can't remember what heck it is right now. Mike, why did you make me forget that?
That's my job to make you forget.
If it comes back to me, I'll bring it up, but let's move on in the meantime.
All right, well, let's look at this on the most basic level. So your environment, what is in your environment that you need to remove? Think about it. Clean up your environment, first of all. Mm-hmm. You're going to be bringing order in, as we spoke many other podcasts about. Right. Do you have to remove toxic people from your life? If you've got toxic relationships, there will come a point that you will recognize that they are not improving and they never will improve because we cannot change other people.
Yeah, and there's, the idea of bringing... firing people from your life, removing toxic people. That's come up on this podcast many times. But maybe one thing that hasn't come up enough is the idea of hiring great people into your life. So how can you find ways to hang out with more awesome people? I mentioned a business mastermind just a moment ago that I would love to join. Well, the purpose behind that is to hang out with people who are even smarter. I think I'm pretty smart, especially when it comes to marketing. I'm getting better at it.
Oh, you sure are.
I don't hang out enough with really freaking brilliant marketers And my dad always taught me, if you hang around with people and you're the smartest in the crowd, you're never going to get smarter.
Right. And that's one of the things I've said for years. If you want to be the smartest person you know, just hang around with a bunch of idiots. You know? It works instantly.
And if you want to get more fit, hang out with people who are really fit. If you
lift you up.
If you want to be optimistic, or if you want to be traveling more, hang out with people who love to travel. Whatever it is. Now I remember what I was going to say earlier, and it speaks to incremental change. So, and this is something that comes from my history in investing. So, for most of my life, I've been a stock investor. I've invested in good quality businesses, and it's helped me to get on the path towards building wealth. One of the things that I learned early on, and I want to credit a company called The Motley Fool.
Oh, I remember them.
They were David and Tom Gardner with two brothers, and they just did such a good job of explaining the concept of investing in great companies with great management teams that were constantly making good decisions and always leading their industries, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they really pushed people away from thinking of trading stocks, buying them and selling them, and buying them and selling them, and trying to time the market and always failing. It's just a disastrous way to live. In terms of an investor. Anyway, at some point I came across this, I think it was Bill Gates who was, I apologize, Mike. Yeah, Bill Gates, brilliant man. And I believe it was him who said that people have a tendency of overestimating change in the short term and underestimating it in the long term. And that is profoundly important. Because, so let's say, I don't know. Let's say you're looking at a quality of, I usually use business examples. I'm not going to do that here. Let's say you were to look at a relationship in your life that you're not happy with. Could be a boss, a spouse, a friend, anything. Could be your relationship with food. Could be your relationship with alcohol. You can, now some things you can make dramatic changes very quickly, but let's say it's an interpersonal relationship and it's been bad for a while. Well, if you think, I'm going to read, let's say this one book on how to make my marriage better, it's probably not going to light it up for you over freaking night. It's just not going to be, bam, everything's different. Whoa, the lawn tree bloomed. Right. But incremental, you make those changes, and then you look back and go, well, okay, maybe I overestimated how much change would happen in the short term. Okay, great. But then in the long run, so you're disappointed in the short term, right? Like, everything wasn't better next week. We went on that dinner date and we had a fight again.
Yeah.
If you make incremental change, though, and you keep going, what happens is you look back over a few years and you go, holy crap, the magnitude of change in that relationship or whatever the situation is just changed way more than I ever thought possible.
Oh, buddy, that applies in so many ways. When you talked me into putting together Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy.
Yes.
You had to convince me. I thought,
this is a good example,
You said, we're going to put the material out from Architecture of Hypnosis, from our live classes. We're going to do an online academy where people get a membership. And I thought you were insane, but you had a really good track record of essentially 100%. So I listened to you. Do you remember it took us to shoot all those videos?
Almost a year.
364 days from the day we started. Now, we went online earlier because we were still ahead of the curve of people catching up to us.
Yeah, we had a runway going.
But you look back now, that's years ago. Aren't you glad we freaking did it?
Oh, it's amazing. Actually, that's a really good point because, so in the hypnosis industry, there are a few really great, a lot more than a few. There's a lot of really great trainers, but there aren't too many who've actually put together the wealth of information that we have. There are a few of our friends who've done that, but we continue to put more and more stuff out and build an immense library of great training material because we're still doing it, right?
Yep.
And there's a power behind I think the teamwork that we have together.
Absolutely. We're the dynamic duo of
But the
hypnosis.
important, that we're not, again, not to compare, but if we were, again, because I don't want to be comparing us to anyone else.
No.
But the reality
Even
is
though
that
that is one of the
when we
words.
compare our success versus where we were a few years ago, the reason for that is because we continued to take incremental action.
Yes, and you must develop the sensory flexibility and the sensory acuity so that not flexibility, but acuity. We'll edit that out. But just develop the acuity to notice, is what I'm doing working?
Yes.
If it isn't working, stop doing it and do something else.
Do anything else, because in theory, anything
is more liable
has
to work.
a more probable, higher chance, more probable. It's not the right word.
Greater probability of success.
Probability of success.
Now
even if it
let's
seems
mention
stupid.
the John Lee Dumas quote, which I love. When I was on this podcast years ago, really, what an interesting guy he is, entrepreneur on fire. And his line, which I love, and I'm sure it's true, He said, you are the sum total of the 5 people you hang around with the most.
Yeah.
And so that's your environment, is those 5 people to a large degree. Are they lifting you up? Are they dragging you down? Are these people that you just sit around with and smoke dope all day? Or are they people who say, oh, let me give you a hand with that. Here's something you can do to make it even better. Now, I don't necessarily mean in a Ryan kind of way. Our friend helps with everything. But yeah, you got to hang around with good people and be a good person for them.
If I'm the sum of the 5 people I hang around most, I am 3/5 female, 1/5 Mike Mandel, and 1/5 puppy.
Oh, yeah, your dog, Stinky Winky. Yeah.
My wife and 2 kids, obviously, I spend the most time with, hence the joke there.
I said, what about too much chaos? The whole thing about, and this is going to be 2 podcasts. I can see that.
Oh, yeah, we could continue it. Yeah.
The whole thing about your environment is, like Jordan Peterson says, whether you like him or not, he's right when he says, remove some of the chaos. Bring some order to your life.
Yeah, you know what? That's a really good point. Now, Jordan Peterson, since you mentioned his name, it's a good time to say, so some people are going to be like, yeah, he's awesome. He's an amazing speaker, and he's got some great ideas. And other people are on the other end of the spectrum. He's a complete beep, 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 whatever swear word you want to throw out.
Right.
The bottom line is, even if you hate a person, there is something of value to be learned from.
Well, the guy's a clinical psychologist.
There is something. So whether you love the guy or hate the guy, just understand that there are going to be ideas that you can benefit from.
Sure.
So find those ideas. Throw the ones you don't like away. Go on to other ideas from other people. But take the ideas from people that really do make sense and implement them.
No, you can't do that with everybody. I mean, I'd be hard-pressed to find anything about Hitler that was good.
I think you're probably right about that.
Although I think Charlie Chaplin liked his mustache, but that was about the extent of it. So let's go on to the next one. But here's a question. What are you willing to add to your environment to make it more productive and functional? If you think in terms of productivity, now productivity in a good way. I mean, a wound can be productive of pus or something. That's not necessarily good. Functional. How will you bring order to the chaos around you? So what are you willing to do to begin to make that transformation happen?
Well, let's talk about that real quick. So in the last, let's say 12 months, Mike, what have you added to your environment to make yourself more productive? And then I'll do the same thing. And then hopefully this will spark ideas in people. It doesn't have to be our answers, but what does our answer make you think of?
Now, I'm thinking about it. In the last 12 months to my environment.
You bought an iMac.
Well, yeah, there is that.
I kept bugging you about how horrible your old computer was.
Well, it was. I mean,
and you were running a Windows machine. Not that, some people love Windows, but your machine was just so old, taking forever to reboot.
45 minutes.
And if you wanted to do anything, online meetings and stuff, you'd say, oh, well, let me come back to you in 30 minutes when my machine has rebooted. And now you have an iMac. So you basically, regardless of what your belief is about technology and which system is better, he invested in something that was better than what he had.
Way better.
Cost some money and gave him some freedom of time.
Yeah, and now it's way easier to have, to hiccuping here. It's way easier to have our Monday meetings online because we can actually see and hear each other for a change. So yeah, that's changed my environment, definitely. My wife has this thing where she occasionally removes stuff from our environment to make it feel less chaotic. She said to me, like, she finds our house very cluttered, and we really got rid of half our stuff about a year ago.
You've added space to your environment.
Added space.
There you go.
And she said here's the thing. She said, I just want to live in an empty box and not be bothered. I said, well, murder someone. The government will do the rest.
This whole idea of sometimes you take stuff out of your environment. We reframe that. So people complain often, well, I don't want to be afraid of spiders anymore. And we joke, well, how about I make you afraid of carpets instead? Yeah. So, well, I want to take stuff out of my environment. Okay, well, would you like to take that stuff and replace it with a lot of Coca-Cola instead? Just cases of Coca-Cola?
Yeah,
no, I don't want that.
Paper dipped
well, what
in vinegar.
do you want? I want space. I want more air. Okay, so that's what you're adding to your environment. You're adding space.
Remember, to a large degree, you are the king or queen of your own life. The decision
air. Okay, so that's what your
ripple effect and affect other people as well. So I think it's better to make decisions wisely and thoughtfully instead of just jumping and doing things impulsively. But let's continue to the whole idea here about now the next level up is behavior, and that's why this is going to be 2 podcasts. Behaviors. Which behaviors? Whichever ones you adopt, they will transform your environment. Remember, I've given the example before. If your environment is you're frightened at work because people bully you, and that can happen to adults too. And then you discover that you have this new behavior, self-defense class, and you get really tough as nails, and all of a sudden people hear about this and they stop messing with you. which is pretty well what happened to me.
Yeah,
So
once you have the new behavior, your environment
will
tends to
change
change. People aren't
accordingly.
going to pick on you, or people aren't going to maybe make fun of you,
Right, 'cause
whatever it
you have the
is,
behavior
because
of
they're
neck cranking
worried
them or
that
something.
they're going to have their wire ripped out by you. Wiring.
wiring. So-
by the way, I want to just touch on too, when it comes to environment, if you're thinking about how can you change your environment for the better, it could be where you live. So your physical geography,
Could be your
right?
job.
It could be your job. It could be the people that you hang out with. It could be the time of day that you go to the gym or that you go to the gym, because there's a different crowd there that
could
empower
mean-
you in a certain way.
It could mean removing all that junk food from your drawer. You know,
It could be
like
the
all the
food
donuts and
environment.
stuff.
Exactly.
Like change your environment, your life will change.
Could be the route that you take to work instead of
that's a new-
driving. Well, I mean environment in terms of it could be that you're traveling a different path. So instead of driving past the donut store, that you're now on your bike or something like that.
Right.
So this is giving you a different environment and it's behavior.
And
So anyway,
again,
back to behavior.
So you can ask yourself, what behaviors do you bring to the table in your own life that are negative? Like, what's the stuff that's causing your life to stultify and fall apart? Everybody has negative stuff in their life. You need to identify it.
I was actually just on the phone recently with one of our hypnosis students, and we were having a nice conversation about relationships. And I presented my theory that in a lot of relationships, people tend to do mind reading. So we'll have a tendency to treat our spouse, whatever it is, that they should know what we mean, or they should know that we would be upset by X and Y and Z, or they should have known to leave the keys in this certain spot.
So this reverse mind reading,
mind reading or reverse mind reading. I guess they both come into play. But if you are around other people and your behavior is to treat them awesome, then do the same thing awesomely.
Language, please.
Treat everyone awesomely. Treat your wife, treat your husband, treat your kids, treat them all awesomely.
Oh, well, that's interesting, Chris, because you got me to read a book lately. I can't remember which one it was, but there was
What was it about?
It was about you.
Thank you.
Anyway, the thing of the book that was so interesting, it was the charisma one.
Oh, this one right here. I've got it on my...
He has it balanced on this tiny little shelf here.
It is The Charisma Myth by Olivia Fox-Caban.
Yeah, really good book. Now, here's what she said. The one takeaway that I use all the time now is she said, you can fool your brain. You can, well, obviously we all know that's true, but you can change the way you process information. You can change your perceptual filters as a new behavior by simply seeing every other human being with angel's wings, gossamer thin angel's wings. So every time I see a little kid, I see these little delicate wings on them, and it creates a sense of love and appreciation for that kid. If I see a homeless person lying on the road, now I see them with like broken wings though, like, you know, and I feel empathy for them instead of, you know, get off the street, get out of my way kind of thing. Not that I was like that at all, but
No, you never were. You're always the type to give money to somebody who's homeless or whatever.
I just there, but the grace of God go I. So so poor, thanks, buddy. But
Yeah.
what if you've got addictive behavior like social media, television? A friend of mine, he said he came home from 6 days of being away, hadn't seen his wife, walked in, and he said she was just on her iPhone.
Probably
and
not,
barely
not
said
giving
hi,
him the time of
didn't
day.
look up, barely said hi, and just said, "Oh, there's this really cool 1-minute video about Ellen and her relationship with her mother." And he went, "Hi, I'm home."
Yeah.
You know, like. So if you're bringing addictive behavior into your relationships or into your life, social media, television, you know, TV addicts, we won't even go there. I've talked about it so many times. Video games.
They're all addictive. Speaking of, I wanted to ask you, while you brought up the topic of that book, The Charisma Myth, have you finished reading it mostly?
No, mostly,
Okay.
yeah, mostly.
Do you see now why I said even though she never once mentions hypnosis in the book?
Yeah,
There's
it's
so
an immense
much
map across.
There's so much hypnotic stuff in there. So
Yep.
it's an interesting book. Anyway, okay. So
And
continue.
you know, I've even got here the negative behavior, you know, alcohol and drugs. Like if that's in your life and you do not keep it within a reasonable level, you can get in a downward spiral, crash and burn. Complaining, we said that already. What about junk food? You know,
Well, alcohol, drugs, and food can all be characterized as part of your environment in a way too, because if they're around you, if you keep them in your house and you're tempted to therefore behave in a way that makes use of them, or if you're hanging around other people who are using them and tempted to behave in that way. That's
Right.
part of your environment, but it can also be, it's your behavior and your environment, right?
It certainly is. So you add the new behavior of clearing these things out
Exactly.
regularly, which means again you
Put
have to
something else in
notice.
its
You've got
place.
to You've got to be aware of what's going on. Human beings have that human givens, Griffin and Tyrrell, that amazing thing where we are able to step back from a situation, look at it, and see what results am I getting from this? What results are my behavior giving me? What's happening to my environment as a result of these behaviors? And until we are willing to face this stuff, we really don't change too much.
That makes tons of sense. All right, where are we on to now?
Well, Chris, I think it'd be a good time to do the empowering question.
Oh, yeah, because we are going to have to split this into a two-part podcast.
It's going to be another good one, though.
So, okay, 129, we will continue on with this topic.
We'll do the next 4 levels of the logical levels.
And we invite you to send us questions and comments in the meantime, because that way we can add it to our discussion. All right, so here is the empowering question for episode 128. How will this list utterly transform my life when I write it and begin to do it? How will I take action immediately in having the best life I can?
Excellent. So make a list of these points, apply them, make sure things aren't escaping your notice. And I've got the Meta 5 for today, Chris, which is Goulding versus Thane.
Okay.
When I skipped grade 4 and went directly to grade 5 in a mixed 5-6 class, so in essence, I'd gone from grade 3 to grade 6 because the teacher...
Okay.
When I did this all to work at grade 6 level, which was, it almost gave me a nervous breakdown as a little kid. In fact, funnily enough, I found a photograph of myself in that class the other day.
Oh,
I should put it in our group. It's quite funny. I had ears so large, my parents wondered if I was going to walk or fly. But they essentially receded against my head. But my teacher, Mr. Goulding, I've said many times he didn't like me. He was responsible for training and educating me, and I was scared to death of him. And he made my life a living hell in a lot of ways. And he actually put me off school for a very long period of time. I'd gone from straight A's and everything to beginning to fail. And then when we left that school and went to Wexford Public, pre-Wexford Collegiate, I went into the classroom of another guy. This man was Donald Thane. And Donald Thane has since passed away. I tried to track him down years ago. I think he died of MS. But he was absolutely the opposite of Mr. Goulding. Mr. Goulding was a very kind of rigid, one-ish on the Enneagram type, gray hair, in his late 40s. And Donald Thane was in his mid-20s. Very cool guy, very fit, and a bachelor, lived with his mom, and he made school unbelievably good. And just the difference in attitude in the same thing, educating, transformed everything, because Donald Thane engendered in me the desire to learn. He made learning fascinating. He made learning, and he undid so much of the work of Goulding that even though I never went beyond getting a grade 10 education, I learned so much because I loved learning, and that was the difference that made all the difference for me.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. This has been episode 128 of the Brain Software Podcast. Make sure you visit MikeMandelHypnosis.com. On the homepage, you'll find the Brain Software ebook. And check out the events page, MikeMandelHypnosis.com/events. If you're interested in learning more, come on out to Toronto in November, or come hang out with us at HypnoThoughts Live, which is htlive.net if you want to visit their website. We're doing our one-day presentation, Architecture of Change, on Thursday, August 15th. And then we'll be in London between November 6th and November 11th, all part of the UK Hypnosis Convention in and around that area near Heathrow Airport. So with that said, we look forward to bringing more.
Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you on the next one.
129. We're going to continue.
Doing my own sound, Meaford
this
voice
topic.
and that.
So I think at this point, we can say...
Well, thanks again.
And...
Good night!
Because we look forward to...
doing?
Ending... the podcast.
What's that weird thing you're doing?
That we just finished recording today.
Yeah. I keep thinking the sentence is over.
Yeah.
You're an idiot. Let's go get some food.
All right. And
good night.